Before I start this video, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not saying fans are evil. I'm not saying people aren't allowed to be disappointed. And I'm definitely not saying Saba is perfect. But I genuinely think the community unintentionally makes the situation worse. And honestly, I think that's something people need to talk about more. We already know that Saba has struggled with health issues and anxiety for a long time. She herself has talked about how streaming makes her nervous. There were even times she said she couldn't eat properly before streams because of stress and anxiety. Now imagine dealing with that while also being one of the biggest VTubers on the internet. The bigger she became, the bigger the pressure became too. Every stream turns into an event, every tweet gets analyzed, every disappearance becomes drama, every return becomes she's finally back. And I honestly think that environment is horrible for someone with anxiety, because at that point, streaming no longer feels casual. It feels like thousands or even millions of people are watching your every move and expecting something from you. And then when she disappears, the internet explodes. People make countdowns. People make drama posts. People make essays about unsubscribing memberships. People demand explanations. People act like they are personally owed something. Now look, if someone doesn't want to renew their membership because she doesn't stream enough, that is completely fine. That is their money and their choice. But I don't think it's necessary to turn it into a massive public statement every single time, because all that does is create even more pressure. And another thing people need to understand is that there is a difference between supporting a creator and owning access to them. Yes, memberships cost money. Yes, people are allowed to unsubscribe if they feel like they are not getting enough content. But at the end of the day, subscribing is still a personal choice. Nobody is forcing people to stay subscribed. And I think some people started treating memberships like contracts that guarantee constant streams, constant updates, and constant access to someone's personal life. When in reality, streaming for someone like Saba has always felt much more personal and casual than purely corporate. That does not mean fans cannot feel disappointed. But disappointment should not turn into entitlement, because support should not become pressure. And I think once a community reaches the point where every absence becomes outrage and every stream becomes an expectation, the entire environment starts becoming unhealthy for both the creator and the fans. And I already know some people are going to say, if she just streamed more consistently, the anxiety would eventually go away. But anxiety does not always work like that. For some people, repeated exposure helps. But for others, especially when the pressure keeps increasing, forcing yourself into stressful situations over and over can actually make the anxiety worse instead of better. And this is not just normal streaming pressure anymore. This is thousands of people watching viewer counts, analyzing behavior, expecting perfection, turning every stream into a huge event. That is very different from casually streaming to a smaller audience. At that level, even pressing the Go Live button can probably feel terrifying. And before people misunderstand me, I'm not saying fans are not allowed to be excited when she streams. Of course, people are going to hype it up. Of course, people are happy when she comes back. And honestly, every stream feeling like a party is not necessarily a bad thing. The problem is when the excitement turns into overwhelming pressure. Sometimes the community also needs to cool off a little, because the more enormous every comeback becomes, the harder it probably feels to come back casually again. And another thing I think people forget is this: we genuinely do not know what she is going through behind the scenes. People online constantly assume things. She doesn't care. She abandoned the fans. She's lazy. She only comes back for money. But the reality is, we do not know. And because we do not know, we should stop acting like we do. People say, she should at least give updates. And yes, obviously, updates would reassure fans. I understand why people want communication, but real life is not always that simple. If someone is seriously struggling mentally, even looking at messages or opening social media can feel exhausting. Depression, anxiety, burnout, stress, panic, health problems, all of these things can affect people differently. And it goes beyond just mental health, too. For all we know, she could be dealing with something incredibly serious in real life. Maybe she is in a hospital, maybe she had some kind of health emergency, maybe something happened privately that makes being online impossible right now. And before anyone misunderstands me, I'm not saying those things are definitely happening. That is exactly my point. Even I just started throwing assumptions around. And honestly, that's what the community keeps doing too. People assume the worst. People assume she does not care. People assume she is lazy. People assume she abandoned streaming. But assumptions are still assumptions no matter which side they come from. The reality is we simply do not know what is happening behind the screen. And I know it is hard not to speculate when someone disappears for a long time. But constantly posting theories, accusations, and assumptions online does not help anybody, especially when the person involved is already known to struggle with anxiety and pressure. The only confirmed things we really know are the things she herself has mentioned publicly. We know she has struggled with anxiety, and we know she has talked about becoming so nervous before streams that she could barely eat for days or would eat very little. That alone should already tell people that streaming is not some small, casual thing for her mentally. And here's the thing I think many people don't understand about anxiety. Anxiety often creates avoidance. If someone already feels overwhelmed and then they see thousands of people angry at them online, that doesn't magically motivate them to return faster. It usually does the opposite. They start thinking, what if people are mad at me? What if I disappoint everyone? What if the stream goes badly? What if everyone expects too much? And then they delay returning even more, which creates more backlash, which creates more anxiety, which creates more avoidance. It becomes a cycle. And honestly, I think that's what's happening here. I also think people accidentally turned Saba into a symbol. Instead of treating her like a person, every single thing becomes huge community discourse. Not just because of her, but because the internet constantly amplifies everything. Even small updates become massive discussion threads. At some point, silence probably feels emotionally safer than saying the wrong thing and causing another wave of drama. And again, I understand fans being frustrated. I really do. People miss her, people care about her, people want consistency. That's understandable. But I think the community needs to realize that support is not only about wanting someone to stream more. Support is also about creating an environment where they feel comfortable enough to come back. Because if every return becomes a gigantic event filled with pressure, expectations, overanalysis, and drama, then eventually streaming itself starts feeling terrifying. And if we truly want Saba to come back peacefully, maybe we need to stop treating every disappearance and every return like world news. Maybe we need to stop pushing so hard. And maybe the community itself needs to calm down and lock in a little too. And honestly, even if one day we do learn exactly what she has been struggling with, I still think the best thing the community can do is simply calm down and let things cool off. Not because people should stop caring, but because sometimes constantly discussing someone, analyzing someone, and turning every situation into huge discourse can make it even harder for them to come back comfortably. At the end of the day, no amount of pressure from the internet is going to magically fix anxiety, stress, burnout, or personal struggles. If anything, too much pressure usually makes people retreat even more. So maybe instead of constantly asking, when is she coming back? What is she doing? Why is she gone again? Maybe the better thing to do is just wait patiently and let her return when she genuinely feels ready. Not when the internet demands it, not when drama channels want content, not when people start doom posting, but when she herself feels comfortable enough to press the go live button again. And honestly, I think that would probably help a lot more than people realize.